Welcome back to my channel. My name is Carola and I'm a product designer at Dropbox in San Francisco. Today we're going to talk about design challenges. And I don't mean like the difficulties of being a designer, I mean the challenges that we have to perform and submit when we're looking for a new job. Many of you ask me, what do we look for? And I want to make very clear that in this video, I'm not speaking on behalf of Dropbox or what we do at Dropbox. This is just my personal take of how I would do it if I were looking to do a design challenge elsewhere. Having said that, I'm excited to share with you two types of challenges and walk through what's expected, what's not expected in each of them. And then at the end, if you want to skip through, there's going to be a few tips on how to approach a whiteboard challenge specifically. So stay tuned, watch it until the end. There's going to be a few tips there. But let's start with some background. I've been on both sides of the interview, both as a candidate and as an interviewer. And most recently as an interviewer and in the past at both my previous companies as a candidate. Being in this situation, I think I can provide a unique perspective as to how to solve these challenges and what is even expected of you as a candidate when you're approaching these challenges. And how to really have fun doing them, because they're actually the fun part of the interview. Other than showing your portfolio. This is probably at least my favorite part. So let's take a look at what these are and what's expected in each of them. So the first one that comes to mind, and it's one that I did a long time ago, I haven't seen as many around lately, it's the take-home challenge. What the take-home challenge is basically an assignment that is given to you to solve at home. So you're given a task, most likely some sort of app or website to build. And the company requires you to complete that at home on your own time. Usually they give you a specific time box and time limit to complete it by. But to be honest, no one really follows that. I had a 4-hour time block on an interview a few years ago. I spent probably like 8 or 10 hours, a full day, to complete it. So it's really what you want to make of it. I suggest not to spend more than a full day on it because you don't know if the interview is going to go through, and a lot of your time is valuable, especially if you're already in a job. You don't want to waste time from your personal life and just lose any sort of work-life balance just because you want that other job. That said, I've seen take-home challenges still being requested of especially more junior designers. And I think that is because the company is less likely to be willing to take a risk. And so they want to be very sure that what you have in your portfolio, you have done yourself. And sometimes it happens that you work on something with a group of people. And so the company wants to really assess what can you do on your own and what is the level of quality you can achieve, what is the attention to detail, what is how easy is it for you to solve something like this. I have also seen this approach from smaller companies where maybe they don't have as structured of a process for interviewing people. They often ask for a take-home challenge, which takes less work on the company side and gives them the ability to filter out people that might not be at that quality level that they're looking for without spending people's time to interview in person. Some of the expectations that come from the take-home challenge are around how polished and detailed the design is. So a lot of interaction design, visual design, how creative you are, how to the point you are. Like, did you define the problem? What did it define for you? And a little bit of the process. But I would say that compared to the other type of challenge that we're going to talk about, this is more of a deliverable. You're going to have to put together a presentation. You're going to have to explain your process, and you can expect a presentation limit of a few slides and need to be able to concisely say how you approached it, what assumptions you've made, and how you solved it. Some of the key things you need to keep in mind when doing a take-home challenge are make sure you time box it because it could take weeks. Like if you want to make a product fully polished, it could take weeks. So you're going to have to take shortcuts and make assumptions. So make sure you write those down and explain your choices. Second of all, you need to have a clear problem statement and user goal defined. Otherwise, it's going to take you so long to decide how to put things in the design if you don't have a clear problem you're solving. Third thing is make sure you add whatever is the most polished step of your design. If you have prototypes, put them in. If you have animations, absolutely put them in. People want to see how you create a product end to end. So the more you give them, the best. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that process is not the star of the show in the take-home challenge. It happens in private. And so the process, you want to share a glimpse of it just to show that you've taken the steps that are required and that you need to take. But the process is not the key, which is very different from our next challenge, which is the whiteboard challenge. The whiteboard challenge is usually a step of an in-person interview. So it usually happens when you're interviewing at a company that has a more mature interviewing process where they have multiple steps. And one of them is usually the whiteboard challenge. It could be called different ways, but it's basically a moment for you to live solve a problem, live design with someone, whether that's a PM, an engineer, or whether that's another designer. Many companies do it different ways, but it has the key thing of being in person. And that is extremely important, even in a remote environment, because what is the goal of the whiteboard challenge is to really understand how you work. What's your process? What's your communication style? What's your attitude? So they usually start with an abstract prompt. The goal of the whiteboard challenge is really not the final product. It's really about seeing how you approach a very abstract and ambiguous problem. So a lot of the times you're going to see some things maybe sometimes even related to physical products and redesigning classic physical products that you wouldn't even think of. Or sometimes they stay in a digital environment, but the goal is for it to be non-prescriptive and they really want to see where you go. So some of the expectations of a whiteboard challenge are for you to have a pretty defined process. So remember how we said process is not the start of the show in the take-home challenge? Well, that's kind of the opposite in the whiteboard challenge. People really want to see how you think. And how you think usually displays as how you go through the design and your process. So make sure you highlight that and divide your time up nicely and precisely. The other thing that is really expected of a candidate is to collaborate and communicate. So one of the advantages of a whiteboard challenge is that you are able to freely express yourself. You're able to freely show how you would work in a real environment. Are you a person that asks a lot of questions? Feel free to do that in a design challenge. You need to show how you would work in a real world. Some of the must-haves of a whiteboard challenge and that you need to keep in mind when you are approaching them is to make sure you keep a collaborative attitude. No one is there to put you down. Everyone wants you to succeed. So make sure you bring your best collaborative self and have a lot of fun while doing it, because that's really going to make the environment very positive and collaborative and helpful for both you and the interviewer. The other thing is to make sure you have a very clear user and problem defined very early. It's easy to get caught into what this new product could be like and get really excited about it, but you really don't have to lose track of who your goal user is and which user needs they have, because otherwise you end up creating something that doesn't really match with the needs that you've defined. So make sure you keep that in your mind while you go through the challenge. And the other thing, yes, the focus is not the final product, but it is to get to some sort of final step and a final layout. It doesn't need to be polished at all. It's usually like the fidelity of a Sharpie sketch, but you need to get to the end. Otherwise, this shows the signal that you can't manage your time well and that you have not prepared. And maybe that's fine, because in a real world environment, it's not like people have to prepare for every single meeting. But at the same time, you want to be able to show your skills from the start to the end. What if you spend all your time defining the problem, then you have no time to share a layout? That's going to be disappointing for you and for people that are listening to you, because it leaves it unfinished. So make sure you take it till the end and manage your time really wisely. And now let's do a speed run of the tips from this interview approach design challenge video. So tip number 1, read the instruction very carefully. Make sure you take notes if you need to. Tip number 2, call out your assumptions and ask a lot of questions. The interviewer is there to help you. Number 3, define the users and the user need early on. Then number 4, focus on the problem statement and keep it with you up there throughout the whole challenge. Then number 5, map out the possible flow or experience of this new product. This is going to help you a ton in managing the complexity and deciding where to focus on. Tip number 5, choose a platform and explain why you chose that. And by platform, I mean whether you want to build this product on desktop, on mobile, whether it's a physical product. Make sure you specify your platform and explain why you chose that. Definitely don't forget to sketch out a few screens. You don't want to go all the way until the end of the allowed time and not have designed anything. And then lastly, make sure you have fun, because that's the most fun part of interviewing, is to listen to these like super abstract challenges and just have fun creating something that is so far out, futuristic, or just fun to create. With that said, good luck with your next interviews, and make sure you subscribe and ask in the comments if you have more questions about this topic. I'll be happy to reply and try to give you as much insight as I can. I'll see you all at the next one. Cheers!